Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Tales from the Fandom. Not only is one of my guests from the past coming back, but we are talking all about one fandom in particular, and that is the Outlander TV series on Starz, and it is coming back in February of 2020, and I am super excited to have Amanda join me all the way from Vancouver. She was a previous guest on episode 49 way back in 2017, but we had actually recorded in 2016. Little secret on that one. Amanda, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey.
I am so excited to have you back. We have been mutual Facebook friends since the podcast recording way back in 2016. You have moved across Canada, or I guess I don't know if it's across, but like halfway across Canada.
One province over. It's like 12 hours.
One province, 12 hours. You not only have you gotten deeper into the Outlander fandom than when we first talked, but you have also opened like your own business, and you've had an adventure for the past 3 years.
Yeah, it's been really full of just everything.
It's so great. And I know we'll talk about the business at the end of the episode, but we're here to talk about the TV show that you told me about when we originally recorded, which is Outlander. It's on Starz. It's coming back in February.
It's right by my birthday. It's like the perfect birthday present. If they just knew what to give me.
They did. They got you another season, which when I was doing my research for the episode, not only is it coming back for a 5th season, which is in February, they've already got a 6th season. It's already renewed for the next one.
Yeah, I think there should be at least, there should be at least 9, I think. Because I think they're on 8 books right now, and the 9th is being teased to be released. I was at Diana Galvadon's talk in Surrey, and she was teasing that might be released in February as well, to coincide with the season. I don't know if I was allowed to say that, but trade secret. Whoops.
But one of the things that we originally talked about on your original episode was Outlander, and we'll rehash it like a little bit here. But how did you originally get into Outlander? Like, what was the draw for you?
I didn't even know about it until I went on a trip to Scotland with my now husband, then boyfriend. And we stayed with his friend, Gareth Jones, up in Hamilton. And he was like, "Oh, Amanda, you love Scotland. You must have watched Outlander." And I was like, "No, I've never heard of this." And he was like, "Oh, you have to get into it. It's like Game of Thrones for girls." And now that I've watched it, I've realized that was like totally wrong. It has nothing to do like Game of Thrones. But I just, as soon as I got back, I was missing Scotland because I love it there, and decided to start watching it, and it's snowballed into an obsession.
What was your first thoughts like when you watched it? Like, did it take you a while to get into it? Because I remember when we talked originally, like I had not watched it, and then I told my wife, I was like, okay, because she watched it, she was into it, and I said, okay, let's watch it again, and I'll sit and watch it. And it took me a few episodes in that first season to really get into the story and the characters.
Yeah, the first episode was hard to get by because it was so slow, and I just wanted to get like back in the past of Scotland. I didn't really, at that point in time, I wasn't invested in Claire. I never really was a huge Frank fan. He was kind of like boring to me. So that whole bit of like exploring the relationship was dragged on. But as soon as they got back in Scotland and she was being fired upon by the Dragoons and got to meet Jamie and all his band of friends, like from that moment, I loved it. But yeah, definitely every time I tell someone to watch it, it's just get through the first episode. And then as soon as you get to the 7th episode, and every fan of Outlander will know exactly what I'm talking about. As soon as you get to the 7th episode, you're like done for.
Oh my goodness. And see, I must not be a true fan because I don't know what that episode is, but
It's
I
it's the wedding episode. I
okay.
love it so much that when my husband and I were getting married, I told him that I was actually going to walk out to the same wedding song that Claire walks out to because it's so beautiful and it made me cry every time with the music because Bear McCreary is like a musical genius. But they also they do this old Celtic blood vow in it, and I convinced my husband to secretly put the Celtic blood vow from Outlander into our vows.
Oh my goodness, that is awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. Out of curiosity, have you read the books or are you just a TV show Outlander watcher?
I am on the books. My mother and I are both reading the book. She is done all of them. She tries not to spoil anything for me, which is great. But she's done in reading, and I have just started the last book, which I believe is book 8. I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I got this around book 7. The last one I read was really hard to get through. It was kind of dry until the end of it. And it took me, I started reading it and then I had to stop. And it took me a year to get back into it just because it's American history. And, I'm Canadian. I like the Scottish history more. It's easier for me to get through than the American history because I don't understand half the things that happen in the American history unless it was on Hamilton.
I have to say, I love history, and I don't like American history. It was the worst class I always had, whether it was in high school or college. Give me Roman, give me Greek, give me European, give me Asian, but American history, I'm not really into. I never have been.
I'm glad I'm not the only one then because I feel bad for it. However, Canadian history is like just as boring.
Well, I mean, at least with the Canadian history, you get like a lot of like beaver hunters and trappers and trekking across the snowy expanse that is Canada.
And then we had like 2 naval ships get stuck in northern Canada and no one even knew about it, except for the Inuit people who knew the entire time, but no one believed them. And we had that new Frontier show with Jason Momoa that, it's getting me into the Canadian history because Jason Momoa.
Because Jason Momoa.
It's Jason Momoa. He can get me into anything.
With Outlander, like I know that there's like this fandom around it. You yourself have created cosplays,
Yeah.
of the dresses from it.
Yeah. And the fandom is honestly like amazing. You will not see a fandom with a more diverse group of people than the Outlander fandom. Like, if you think of it, the Outlander book came out in 1991. So you have the ladies who read it in 1991 and fell in love with book Jamie and Claire. And then you have the new people falling in love with Jamie and Claire on the TV show, brand new. So you have old, you have young, just it's like such a large diverse fandom and everyone that I've ever met is just super good and kind. Like when you see someone, even though it's like such a huge thing, it still feels a little surreal to have a lot of fans and a lot of people that know about it. So when you're at a convention and you're dressed up and someone actually recognizes what you're dressed up as, it's a huge like, oh my gosh, you know my character? Well, how do you know this? You like Outlander too? This is amazing. And it feels like a miracle to have found a fan, even though like it's a huge thing now. So it's like big city to small town feel kind of fandom.
Right. It's absolutely. I know because I've been to a few conventions where I recognize like certain cosplays, and people that do those very, I don't want to call Outlander niche, but when you're going to a big like comic and movie and TV like convention, Outlander's not like the thing that springs to mind for a lot of people. And
Yeah,
I
it's
know,
kind of a happy coincidence.
yeah, and I know that when people recognize like those cosplays that are from those fandoms that might not be represented as much as like Marvel and DC and Star Wars and Star Trek and the ones that are around more like now. And it's like, the people just light up when you're like, I recognize that character that you are.
Yeah, it's honestly just it's amazing. And it's something that I missed with the Harry Potter fandom because I dressed up as Luna Lovegood and no one understood it. So I was a little worried when I did Outlander because I was like, no one's going to understand my random dress from season 2. But it just made me so happy when that was not the case and everyone was so sweet and so kind.
I'm trying to get the memory correct. You did one of the dresses, and then didn't you met the costume designer?
So Terry Jessback is the designer, and I absolutely just adore her. And season 2, I fell in love with all of her dresses. So like as soon as I finished season 2, I knew I had to make one of her gowns. Especially when I found out that Sam and Katrina were going to be going to this Comic-Con in Seattle. So I decided to start making one of Claire's dresses from season 2. Before I went to go meet Sam and Katrina at Seattle at the Emerald City Comic Con, I decided to tweet Terry Dressback about my dress and ask her if she liked it. And she loved it, and it was amazing. And then when I went to go meet Sam and Kate at Emerald City, they both also freaked out about my dress. And Sam actually asked if he could take a picture of me to send to Terry personally. And it was just the best feeling ever. And then when I finished, I sent her some photos from Emerald City and then Terry. And then once again, she was commending me on a great job. And I was like, yeah, I'm ready for a challenge now. And she actually challenged me to create one of Louis Delatour's dresses from season 2, because she said it was her hardest dress that she created. And I'm like, not one to shy back from a challenge. So I decided to try to make Louis Delatour's dress from season 2. It's the blue one that has all the puffs, and it's like, it's pretty dang extra. So made that one and sent it to her, and she was once again super excited and loved it. And then I decided that having 2 big season 2 dresses was great, but I wanted a gown from the first season too, because the first season, of course, is actually my favorite and is the season I fell in love with. So I ended up making Claire's dress from The Gathering as well. So I've now made 3 dresses. I've sent them all to Terry Dressback. I feel like we have, a little bit of a connection together. I mean,
Yep.
we have a shared past now. It's great.
That is awesome. That's so cool. Like, not only to like have the actors, take pictures and then send it off to her, but then to, have the communication and being challenged by her.
Yeah, she's honestly like amazing with her fans. She's so committed to her fans and talking to them on Twitter. Like if you reach out to her, she'll almost always tweet back at you. I'm a little sad because she's not on season 5. She's officially retired now. So no more Terry Dressback dresses. And it's going to be a hard one to stomach. But, I'm sure whoever's taking over for her, I'm sure she's trained and taught well.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully I'll get to have a connection with the new girl too.
All right. So let's see here. We have covered I guess you pitched Outlander to me to try to get me to watch it, and listen, Amanda, I tried my best on telling someone about Outlander a couple weeks ago, and I didn't really do a good job because I didn't want to be like, oh, it's Game of Thrones but for women, because
Yeah.
that's how that's how it used to be.
Yeah.
And it's totally not that at all. So we have listeners here that are hopefully listening to this episode. What would you say to somebody that's listening? Maybe they're just like checking out the podcast, and like to get them interested, to get them to watch, to get them to do the free trial on Stars, or to even check it out on Netflix, because Netflix has the first 3 seasons, I think, now. So
4.
What would you say?
My big sell is it has a sexy redheaded Scotsman, and you get to see him naked a lot. I mean, usually that's all I have to say. I'll send a picture of Sam with that statement, and I'll be like, you got to watch him undress. And lots of people will be like, sign me up. But if that doesn't do it, I say it's about a woman who gets thrown back into time, and then she has to struggle to create a new life in the past in Scotland. And if you're a history buff, like it goes from the Scottish history to the French history to ends up in the American Revolution. So history buffs will love it.
It is something I think that's the biggest thing that caught me off guard when I was watching was I thought foolish me because I knew nothing. I was like, "Oh, it's just going to take place in Scotland." Like that's what it is. And then when they're like, "Okay, we're going to Paris, we're going to France." And then we're going to be in the court of like Louis the 15th and running around with that crew of people. Like that blew my mind. I was like, "What?"
Yeah, as someone who I didn't start reading the books until the end of season two or midway through season two. So the whole French court too to me was like, what do you mean we're going to France? No, this is a show set in Scotland. And as someone who started watching it for her love of Scotland, it it was a little bit to change my mindset of, you know what, it's okay. It's okay that they're leaving Scotland. You still have Sam and Kate, like it's all that matters. But I actually really do love it. Like I love the change of scenery, and like the French court, of course, had my favorite outfits and my favorite costumes. So if they had stayed in Scotland, I would have never learned about 18th century French court fashion.
Hmm. Exactly. And I think it does. It's nice for the show to especially like get out and break out. I guess of the Scottish area. I wasn't too much of a fan of like some of the like in the seasons that followed the French one. I was like, okay, let's try and get past some of it, but
Oh yeah, like anything in the boats. I hated anything about season three. I think I like watched half of it while on my phone. I loved it reading the book for like book three. I loved book three, but I wasn't as much of a fan of season three.
hmm.
I don't know. I couldn't get really, really into it.
Now, let's see here. So, just as a recap for people that are listening, season one is the traditional goes back in time and meets Jamie, and it's like a lot of clan stuff, and she knows that they're going to try this rebellion and it's not going to work. Like that's pretty much like what happens, and then they go to France.
And lots of sex.
It, there you go. I'll let you handle that part.
Yeah.
And so season two is Paris,
Mhm.
and then they go back to Scotland.
And once again, lots of sex scenes. Great.
Yep. And then she returns to her time,
Yeah.
and then her and her husband have a kid, but it's not their kid, it's Jamie and Claire's kid.
Yeah. And we all hate Frank by that point, even though he's done nothing really wrong. It's all because of his behind the scenes twin.
Yes, yes, and yes.
I felt so
And
bad for Frank. Like he got such a short end of the stick.
he did because at the beginning everything's perfectly fine and they're all in love, and he's returned from the war and she's returned from the war, and they're gonna get some time together after a long World War II, and then she just goes back in time.
Yeah. And then less sexy time. That's why season three is so hard. It's the decline.
Oh yeah, season three. Let's see here. I have that she finds out that Jamie is alive at the end of season two, and is like, I'm going to get back to him.
And then it takes half of season three to get back to him.
It does. There's a lot of research, I believe. Like they do like that whole research while Jamie's like in prison, and then he works at an English estate and has a kid, and then he goes back to Scotland, and Claire's in med school, Claire's in med school, and
Everyone hates her for being in med school because it's Good old, what is that, the 70s?
48.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, women aren't supposed to do that apparently. And then they meet Roger, who's like at the old priest place, I think. Is like, yes, I think it's the priest or the
Yeah, he was adopted by the father, by the priest.
right. And they find out like Jamie is still alive, and then she goes back in time, and then there's hidden treasure to track down and pirates and
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. All that good stuff. Gayla Duncan.
Yes, that was a shock. I will say that one was that like that whole meeting of like Galus and everything or yeah.
I
I w-
loved her when I first met her, Gayless. She was like the best. But then she has to go and be evil and rape people and I don't know. I can't get back on her good side. But I loved her in season one. I was like, you go, you witchy girl. Yeah, you have that affair. You get pregnant. I loved her.
exactly.
And then she just had to go for worse. My dad, he watches it too. He absolutely loves Outlander. He doesn't read though. He's not a big reader. So my mom and I know everything that's happening, and he doesn't. So when Galus came back, apparently he like freaked because he didn't see it coming and was like, "You didn't tell me she was coming back." Like, sorry, we don't want to spoil it for you.
Yeah, that was wild. That was the one thing when, cuz it's not a show that's set up for like those big plot twists really. Like there's not really like big plot twists in them, but that one was like the dropping of I turned to my wife and I remember being like, "What is going on here?"
There's another plot twist kind of coming up. I would say in season 5, like someone who we think is dead is coming back.
See, now I don't know because I don't read. I don't know nothing.
I don't know if I should say anything now. I'm probably gonna spoil it later when we talk about season 5. I'm sorry.
So after the Caribbean adventure that they have, they get caught up in a storm. They get shipwrecked in Georgia of all places.
Yeah. And it was in the books when I was reading, like I said, I don't know a lot of this, like the American Revolution. So reading a lot of the names, I got really lost. And I was like, I can't keep all these names apart. Like I know George Washington.
Yep.
That's great. I have that name down, but they talk about these generals and like none of these people were in Hamilton. I don't know any of this. That's my base of American knowledge, by the way, is Hamilton. And yeah, it just was super confusing to me and I really lost a lot of steam. But when season 4 came out, I kind of found a new love for the new American novels. I don't know if it was a mix of, I loved the music because I am a stickler for a banjo. So Bear McCreary once again pulled me in with his amazing musical abilities and got me to follow it. And then the sets and everything was just so beautiful that I kind of fell in love with it again, which was great.
hmm
But then it gave me the oomph to go start the book that I had put down because I just didn't understand the Scottish or the American history.
Curse that American history.
American history that has so many names.
So in season 4, they find themselves in North Carolina, essentially between North Carolina and other places. They get their own plot of land, although you're kind of cringing at like here's Jamie like making a deal for this land and saying that yeah I'll put people on the land, but then I'm gonna be like in charge of like helping out if need be,
Yeah,
and
that's
you're
gonna be
giving
a huge
Jamie the
contention.
side eye.
It's going to be a huge point of contention for the next couple books. I guess the next couple seasons too. It definitely because it goes against all his morals because of course he doesn't like the English. They took away his land, they took away his people, they killed his friends. Like he hates them, and now he has to side with them so that he can start a new life. And yeah, it's going to get him in a lot of trouble.
Yep. And meanwhile, Claire's daughter in the 70s, like tells Roger to kick it to the curb. She doesn't want to marry him. Finds out that her parents, her true parents, Jamie and Claire, apparently die in a fire, and so she's like, you know what? I'm going to go back in time too and track them down. And Roger Roger gets a letter and is like, well, I'm going to follow her.
Can we just say though how like terrible Brianna is and how Roger can do so much better? I'm not a fan of her. She's so whiny. Like the whole thing of, oh, Roger, I love you, but oh, how dare you ask me to marry you? This is totally out of left field. But now I'm going to leave you and I'm going to run away and I'm just going to leave a letter and not tell you anything, even though, we're so in love. And oh, she's the worst.
I was going to ask about that because my wife also does not like Brianna at all.
She is the worst. She is just whiny and she complains. In the book, she's like just as bad. Like I can't get. I think it's because too, like her mother Claire is my absolute favorite character. I know I talk about Sam and Jamie a lot and how cute he is, but like Claire is my girl. Like I love her. She's strong. She's independent. She's unapologetically herself. Like she is who she is. And then you have Brianna, who's like, oh, I don't love you, but I love you, but I want to go back in time, but I hate my father, but I love my father. She's so wishy-washy. There's so much wrong with it.
Yeah, it's definitely something like to see her because I loved her and Roger together. I'm like, yeah, they make a great couple. And then she's like, nope, bye.
Yeah, she's terrible.
She just
I
drops
love
him.
Roger, and he's just terrible.
And then we have like a lot of stuff going on with like the American South and slavery that comes up and uh Native American there not only is like slavery touched upon, but the what is happening with the Native American peoples in the Americas of you have all these people that are now laying claim to land that is not theirs,
Yeah,
and it's definitely something to watch and see how those characters are reacting to it and trying to deal with it, and especially with Claire coming from her time period and like having to go back and deal with like Jocasta and like the plantation, and it is something.
I think the Mohawk storyline too is just my favorite part. I think they handled it really well. They actually they put out a note for First Nations people in Canada to actually fly down to Scotland to do the filming. So I think like the whole fact that they used real First Nations people and they didn't try to whitewash really impressed me. They actually hired there's two First Nations people who came from Vancouver. It's Braden Clark and Sarah, I'm going to say her name wrong. I'm sorry, Sarah Lees MacArthur. They're both Canadian First Nations people from Vancouver who got chosen to go down there and act. And Braden actually became one of my favorite characters in season 4. He's barely in it, but if you watch, I don't know how to say his name, but if you watch, he is the one in the red coat with a blue mohawk. And his acting is just absolutely amazing. There's one episode when Father Alexander, who is captured by the Mohawks, he fell in love with one of the Mohawk women and got her pregnant. And then he gets stuff ensues, and he ends up being burned on the stake for his involvement. And as he's burning, his native wife like runs in, and she can't be without him, so she decides to burn to death with him. And I remember there's a shot of Braden's character holding onto her baby, and it just shows his eyes, and they're so big and they're so full of like this intense emotion. And it was like right there, I'm like, okay, I need to know who you are because you are my new favorite. He was just, I really hope we see more of him in season 5 because his acting ability is amazing.
Do you think, because we're talking about season 4, which is the last season, Do you think that they're going to stick with some of that storyline with the Mohawk? Because for me, I was like, okay, young Ian is now like part of their group, and the rest of them are back to Jocasta's, and they're gonna eventually, hopefully, get back to Fraser's Ridge. But like, it felt to me like they were kind of like done with that storyline. But
Uh,
maybe you know more.
I definitely think I'm hoping. I really because I'm such a huge fan of the Mohawk storyline, so I really hope they have more of it. In book 5, they don't do Ian because Ian has to be with the Mohawk and he has been stripped of his whiteness. He is no longer allowed to speak English. He has to speak the Mohawk language. He's been adopted by them. So he does not get to see Jamie and Claire. So for that fact, he might not be there. But I'm really hoping because in future books, he talks about his life with his Mohawk and it kind of goes in flashbacks with his life with them. So, really hoping that within season 5, they also look at Ian because we know what happens with him with the Mohawk life. So, I'm
Hmm.
hoping instead of doing it in flashbacks in later episodes, that they just straight up integrate it into season 5 because Mohawk Ian is phenomenal. I love him in the books. He is turning into my favorite. Like he might replace if they do him properly and if they do him how I see him in my mind while I'm reading, he's going to replace Jamie as my favorite male. I
Oh my
love
goodness.
Mohawk Ian is he's layered. He's very layered. His time with the Mohawk is going to change him. He is going to become a man that is deeply, deeply packed with emotions. And the things that Ian is going to have to deal with the Mohawk people is like an issue that a lot of people in America have to deal with. And the way that he deals with the issues is heartbreaking, and you can like feel his emotional journey, and like I get really emotional talking about him and what happens to him. Like I don't want to say it because it's just, it's going to come up in season 5 hopefully, but
Hmm.
he has some rough life. He has a little bit of hardships coming to him, and I really side with him. I really feel for him. It's a huge issue with lots of couples. So it's great that she put his storyline in there. I'm
That's
being
awesome.
so vague, but
Well, now you want me. Now I want to not only like hopefully see it, but I want to read about it now. Dang
yeah,
it!
I know. I'm sorry.
As if I don't have enough books to read.
I'd a little bit more. Yeah, they definitely need to put him in. And I want to see more Rolo. Rolo's adorable.
All right, so favorite characters I have to say right now are Jamie and Claire, right?
Yeah. I mean, I like Claire more because, she's a girl and she's a great role model. But yeah, Jamie's cool. I like him.
Do you have like an underrated character, like a character that you're like, they don't get enough love, but I love them.
Uh, well, young Ian, because I feel like he hasn't come to his being yet, and I feel like
Hmm.
everyone is going to love him really soon. Like if you don't like him now, you're going to like him soon. And from season 2, Louise Delator, I loved her. She just did her best. She was, the French girl that was married, but she was seeing the king behind her lover's back. And there's like one line that just made me fall in love with her, and it was, sleep with my husband, but my lover will be outraged. Like, oh my gosh, you go girl. Like you break those gender stereotypes. Like I unapologetically love her.
Man, there's so like I always find that I always like these background characters like young Ian. I really loved his storyline.
Yeah.
I of course fell in love with Roger because Roger, like, to me, like when I'm watching, it's like, dang, Roger just seems like who I would be if I was in Scotland,
Yeah.
kind
Roger's
of.
the realistic everyone man. Like Claire goes back in time and she's like, oh my gosh, I can do all these things. I can still save people's life in Scotland. In season 5, spoiler alert, she's going to invent penicillin. Like, she's living her best life. She's saving people. She's just kicking butt. And then Roger comes back in time and he's like, oh crap, I can't do anything. I'm
Right?
useless. And that would be me. I would go back in time and I'd be like, I would be him. I can sing. I can do that. I don't have a sewing machine, so I can't sew anymore, but hey, I can sing. I'll make you a good fried egg if you can start the fire. I'd be the
You
worst
know,
woman.
and that's, I think that's also like the thing that got me between uh like when he went back and when Brianna went back, like, because their two things were totally different. Like, they're two paths to get to the Americas. And I'm like, dang, I'd be like Roger, like, please somebody help me. Like, I can't really do much, but I'll figure something out.
Yeah, I think that's what set her apart for me with like Brianna and Roger too, because Brianna was like all luck. And she was like, oh, now I've met this person. I have a handmaid now. She's going to help me across. And Roger was just like, screw this. I'm fumbling. I'm going to make friends with the worst guy ever. And he's going to get me across. Like, he made a lot of bad choices.
But he didn't know. He didn't know,
I
Roger.
know. And you just sit there like cringing the whole time. You're like, oh, buddy, like, that guy is gonna rape your future wife. Like, don't get involved with him.
Oh gosh.
Like, Stephen Bonnet, though, how terrible is he? He is like, okay, him or Blackjack.
Oh gosh, I was just about to ask you that question of who did you think
Well, I
who do you
want to
think
know
is
for
worse?
you first.
Well, I'm going to answer. Um, Honestly, I think I'll take Stephen Bonnet, because, and only because I think with Blackjack Randall, it was so. I think it's a more visceral reaction because we knew who Frank was, and it's like, okay, like, I I I I I get like what's going on, but like Stephen Bonnet just seems like he's like chaotic evil of just he's just
He just
not
bad.
a good person.
Yeah, he is. He is bad for the main thing of just being evil. Like, Jamie and Claire helped save him and saved his life in the beginning of episode 1, season 4. And then by the end of season 1, episode 4, he's killing all their friends. He's stealing their jewels. He's like stealing her wedding ring, killing people in front of them. But it's one of my favorite scenes, like with how just terrible he is in that scene in episode 1. It's my
Hmm.
favorite because I love how they have, I think it's America the Brave playing, or America the Beautiful is playing in the background of that scene. And it's just like, welcome, welcome to America, where this guy, you're going to save him, and then he's just going to screw you over in every way possible.
Yep.
Like, yeah, there's no reason for him to be that cruel to them, except for the fact that he's a bloody pirate and he wants it.
Yep. And then we get to see him again, and it's like, dang it! I thought he was gone from our life.
Yeah, no, he is definitely not gone.
Now, one of the things I wanted to mention before we jump into like talking about the upcoming season is, and it is one thing that I pointed out to the person I was talking to about Outlander. I said, the thing that I love about Outlander is they let their characters age. Like, Claire has aged, Jamie has aged, the actors have aged, and they're letting them do it. Like, and of course, there's makeup and hair and everything else that goes into it, but it just seems natural and normal, and I like that. I like that they're getting older, and that Claire's hair color is changing, and Jamie's hair color is changing, and I like that. I like the aging of the characters.
I when I met Sam and Kate, it was before the time jump of season 3. And I actually talked to Kate and I said, I'm a little worried about the aging because I was only, oh gosh, I was like beginning 20s then and in love with Jamie, who was supposed to be like 18. So for me, it was like, oh, how am I going to be like attracted to this man who is now going to be supposedly the age of my father? And I was really worried about it. I was like, okay, like how are they going to age you? Are you going to be haggard? Are you going to have white hair? And she was like, actually, it's only like Claire's only a couple of years older than what I am. So do you think I'm going to look like that in 5 years? And I was like, oh, good point. Good point. So yeah, I definitely think they're doing a great job at gracefully aging them, especially for
Hmm.
people like me who aren't ready to jump on board with the whole Roger Brianna love story yet. Like it definitely will start to shift to
Hmm.
give more of them, and I'm not ready yet. So I'm glad that they're gracefully aging Jamie and Claire.
Right. And I I just, like I said, I enjoy seeing that. I enjoy them like not having to do something to where it's like, okay, time has passed, but they look remarkably great.
Yeah, Sam is still swoon worthy. Although that wig, that one season, I forget if it was season 3 or season 4, but his wig was terrible. And then season 5, they finally have his hair is good again. So I'm glad they fixed that mistake.
So what is coming up for us in season 5? I have not watched any trailer, any previews. I've not read any spoilers. Where we last left off is that Jamie has gotten his instructions finally from the British that he needs to go kill his best buddy Murtaugh, basically.
Which is a strange thing because Murtaugh is dead in the book. So Murtaugh is not a thing in the book series. And instead, it's a man named Duncan Ines. So I don't, for that storyline, I have no idea what's going to happen because, like in the books, Duncan was just with Jamie and Claire, and he kind of did whatever they did, and he helped them out. And there wasn't a big thing about go find this friend of yours and kill him. It was just join the American Revolution now. Like you have to go up and fight against people.
Okay.
Yeah, but so I have no idea what's going to happen with that. He is going to probably go and fight. The season 5 is definitely going to revolve around him getting set up and trying to not only find people to live on Fraser Ridge, but also find people to fight in the war that he on the side that he doesn't even care about, which is the sad part.
And I know, and of course we talked about the Mohawk storyline, so hopefully that will be integrated into season 5 too, so we have like I'd love it to be like an A storyline with a B storyline, and then of course
Yes.
we're going to have to deal with Roger and
Oh, poor
Brianna.
Roger. So Roger is going to have this season. He is going to go from the best day of his life to literally the worst day ever. And it's going to be a day that changes his entire life. And as a singer, like I know exactly how terrible the event that's going to happen is going to be to him. Like it's life changing in a not a good way. He's gonna yeah. Poor Roger. I'm sorry. I know he's like one of your favorites. But at least for the first half, he's gonna be happy. you're,
Let's hope.
you're gonna see him blissfully happy for about 4 episodes or 5, and then it's gonna hit the fan.
Now you're making me worried.
Yeah, you should be a little worried about him. He's set up for disaster. But
Oh god.
hey, there's gonna be a couple weddings, and that'll be good.
I was going to make the joke, oh, is there going to be like 4 weddings and a funeral, but let's not go there.
I'd say there's gonna be 2 weddings and no funeral. Oh wait,
Oh
is there
wait.
a funeral? I don't think there's gonna be a funeral. I'm pretty sure, but there's definitely gonna be 2 weddings. I'm counting. Well, then again, like, because Duncan no longer exists, but I'm thinking more too is going to take Duncan's place. So yeah, there should be 2 weddings. That's my prediction.
Should be 2 weddings.
There should be.
Okay. And we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. They're also this season's gonna have no time traveling.
Oh my gosh, no time traveling?
There
What?
will be no time traveling unless, do you remember in season 4 when Claire found that skull
Yes.
and it had the fillings in it and she
Yep.
learned, yeah. So that should come back. So I don't know if they're going to do flashbacks with him. But yeah, we're going to hopefully have our first look at another time traveler. Even though there's going to be no time traveling, there should be another time traveler. And
Ooh, that's
his
exciting.
storyline will bring the Mohawks back in.
Awesome. There we go.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
I'm sorry, our baddie that we both hate, he's going to be back. And the Frasers are going to be out for his blood, of course, because now they know who he is and they know how terrible he is.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't think he would actually be gone, did you?
Oh, of course not. Of course I didn't
It's
think
like
that he was going to be
if
gone.
Gayless Duncan couldn't die on a stake, then a little tiny explosion could not kill. And we saw him reaching for the keys.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, he's just going to cause havoc.
I want to get a prediction from you before we wrap things up.
All right.
Is Murtaugh going to die in this season?
No. I believe that he is taking over Duncan's role and he will not die this season.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is this episode's going to come out before the new season, and then you and I will reconnect after the season
and see if
and
I'm
go over
wrong.
it again and talk about what the season did and how it might have broken us or made us like super excited about things or vengeful against Stephen Bonnet because he's the worst.
Oh, he's the absolute worst. I hate it.
But before we wrap things up, I do want to mention, especially for people that might live in the Vancouver area, that you have opened a business, and I'd love for you to talk about it in case there are Vancouver listeners here.
Oh, so I just opened my own princess venue. So it's not in Vancouver, but it's in Langley, and it's pink and it's sparkly and it has a green wall. And it's just a venue that you can rent with or without the princesses. We actually got nominated as one of the top 5 party venues in all of BC. Voting starts, I guess by the time this airs, voting will be ended. So hopefully we'll be in first or second place for that. Yeah, but you can come, you can have your party, you can have a bridal shower, and then if you want, you get to add one of our beautiful princesses.
And that is awesome. And I'll make sure to have links in the show notes for that and on the Facebook page and the website. So if you're in that area, definitely check it out. Give Amanda a call and get some great space going for your event. And Amanda, where can people find you on the great wide world of the internet if people want to check what you do out?
If you want to check out my princesses, because all my cosplay has kind of went into my business now. So you can find all of those at Fairy Sky, and Sky spelled with an E, like the Isle of Skye in Scotland. And if you just want to see me and see what's happening in my life, I'm Anna.Lee on Instagram, and Lee is spelled Leigh.
And I'll make sure to have those links in the show notes as well and across all of our pages for Tales from the Fandom. And Amanda, I am super excited about this season, and you've made me even more excited. So thank you.
Hopefully, I haven't ruined your life with Roger.
I can take the suffering. Like, you know what? If young Ian shows back up,
Oh, and young Ian, he's going to
I'll
beat me.
split between Ian and Roger. Like, it'll be okay.
Yeah, if I have to go through a season without young Ian, now that I know what he's going to turn into, I will die. I love him so much.
Well, I am glad that you were able to come back for another episode. And if you want to listen to Amanda talk about stuff beforehand, way back in 2017, where we talked about Outlander and Harry Potter and Disney and cosplay, and we even talked about the Ghostbusters fandom for a little bit, you can check out episode 49, which will also be linked in the show notes for you to check out and listen. And thank you so much for taking the time to come back.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad we finally got to talk about Outlander.
And we'll be talking about it again probably like April-ish, May, because it starts February 16th, and I think it's 10 to 13 episodes.
Yeah, it's long enough.
So it'll be a bit, but we'll be back. We'll be back.
Oh, good.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Tales from the Fandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.